Welcome to the follow up course for your altars. I've decided to put this in Reiki 3 so that anybody who does Reiki 2 has a chance to find their sacred space and build their altar and spend some time with it. And now that you've had time to find the sacred space for your altar, the objects to build it, set it up, and spend time with it, you may be asking how to expand your practice. In this lesson, we will touch briefly on the different ways you can work with your altar and different dedications that may come up for you. Who we can work with would be your ancestors, deities, spirits of land, spirits of house, and then we'll talk about different ways we can honor them. You can have more than one altar. I started with one, but now I have several that I work with. People will show up and call to you as you walk your path, and then they will call to you to work with them. I don't know how else to explain it. You may have a dream, find a book, or just start seeing something or someone everywhere all of a sudden and feel called to build a practice with them. And usually they'll have something to do with something you're working on during your path. You can do it different times. I have a daily practice I do with certain altars. Some of them are on specific days. They'll kind of guide you how they want to be worked with once you start working with people. Who can you work with? Your ancestors, deities, spirits of land, spirits of house, and these are just a few. In this lesson, we'll touch on each one briefly, and then I'm going to make a separate lesson for each individual one, so it's more extensive. This is just to give people an idea, to touch on each one. Maybe something may speak to you more than another, so you might skip a lesson on that, and then just go to the ones that call to you. Ancestor veneration, also known as ancestor worship, is the practice of honoring your deceased ancestors. It can involve rituals, maintaining grave sites, and making offerings. Some of the benefits are cultivating kinship values like family loyalty, filial piety, and continuity of the family lineage. It can also help you connect with your family line and your ancestral line. How you can do it, you may make offerings like pour libations, like candles, or leave food or drink at grave sites or altars. And this works for everybody. You may do gravesite maintenance, like cleaning grave sites, also known as tomb sweeping. Create space, like hang artwork, sculptures, or effigies in the home or on the altar. To apply teachings, use anything that you've learned from your ancestors to pass down. Like I learned some things from my grandmother that I taught my son. Um, one that's funny is when we were little for New Year's, we would go outside and bang pots and pans every New Year's, make a lot of noise. And we would take our pots and just bang them together. And I think she had two big lids that we would bang together like cymbals, and we would just scream and holler and make all this noise as we were little. We would stay up. And that was our thing when our parents were out for New Year's Eve and my grandma would watch us. So when my son was little, I passed that down. So as he got older, we did the same thing. We'd go out and bang the pots and pans and yell and scream and holler. And then he grew up and he moved to Sweden. And on New Year's Eve, he banged the pots and pans and he made all the noise. And his boyfriend would go to their friends if their friends was over. Hey, hey, this is how the Americans celebrate New Year's. So now there's a group of people in Sweden that think all Americans celebrate their New Year's by banging pots and pans because this was something that got passed down through our family. So you may ask, what if my ancestors were assholes? What if I didn't like my ancestors? What if I do not want to work with these people? You don't have to work with ancestors. You can ask for only certain ancestors to come up. There is also ancestors of place, which we will talk about further on in this course. So this is just one of the many ways you can work with people. I have some ancestors I love, some ancestors I don't even know. Some ancestors maybe I didn't get along with so much in life, but they may still have lessons to teach me now that they're on the other side. So everybody is different. You may be adopted, maybe you don't know your ancestors. So you will have ancestors from your adopted family that are your ancestors now. You still have your ancestors even though you don't know them from your biological family. Like I said, we'll get more into all that. We'll have each section in this lesson, I'll have its own um, course on each. I'm trying to build it as I have time in between work and other things. So I will offer it all together, but you can grab it in the course if you're already in it as well. Deities. Deities can offer spiritual guidance and support. Worship, prayer, and rituals dedicated to deities can provide a sense of comfort, purpose, and connection to something that is greater than oneself. They can play a crucial role in cultural identity and heritage, and they can often embody moral and ethical principles. Their stories and teachings can serve as guidance for personal conduct and societal norms. I work with a few, they were wonderful to work with. When you find the ones that want to work with you, you may say, "Oh, I want to work with this deity," and maybe that deity doesn't want to work with you. It happens sometimes, but they'll find you. I When I set out, I had no clue what I was doing. I started out taking an online course about how to. It was an ancestral course with my friend Ash. It was a wonderful course. I learned how to build my altar. I learned how to work with my ancestors, and I loved it. And then as time went on, deities started showing up in dreams. And at first I was kind of like, what is. So then I was talking to Ash, and this was years after I had built my ancestral altar. And he was like, I said, I had this dream, I made this painting. And he was like, oh, you can work with that person. They may be asking you to work with them. So I built an altar for that person. And that person introduced me to more people. And then I've got a couple different ones going on. Um, So it's interesting how they will randomly show up. And even, if you're not thinking about it, they may be asking to work with you in some way. I'm on a healing journey. So the deities that work with me have different healing principles that they work on that they teach me. And it's just wonderful when they show up. And it's so fascinating to start working with them and read more about them and learn about them and see how they're coming into your life to help you on your path. So it's really been a very enjoyable journey for me, and I've learned a lot from the deities who have chosen me to work with them this time. Spirits of place. So working with spirits of spaces refers to the practice of interacting with the spiritual energies believed to reside within a particular location. Now this is shamanic, and I think a lot of people do it, but it's kind of more on the shamanic side. So these spirits could be in a location like a home, a building, natural area. It often involves rituals, offerings, and communications to either honor the space's history, cleanse negative energy, or cultivate a desired atmosphere within it. Essentially, it treats the space as an entity with its own consciousness that can be engaged with. But you can have household spirits, entities believed to reside in homes, sometimes referred to as house spirits, who are thought to watch over the dwelling and its inhabitants. I just recently started getting through working with the spirits of place. I grabbed a new book, which you'll see at the end. It's a shamanism book that explained better what it was and how to do it. It's very interesting. If you are interested in this and it calls to you, I'll point out the book for it at the end. They have land spirits. Spirits associated with natural landscapes like forests, mountains, or bodies of water. They are often considered guardians of the land. So I'm working with my household spirit and my land spirit, which is for my actual little space of land, which is my yard. You may have a park or a trail or some place that you enjoy going to. You can worship there if you live in a spot that you don't have property, maybe or an apartment or something like that. Um, You can anywhere you go, even if you're just temporary, you can work with the land spirits of that land. And then again, we have the ancestral spirits, which is the spirits of past residents of a space who may be present due to strong attachments or unresolved issues. So, like my house spirit, my house could have its own spirit, but the man who built it and his wife who lived here, their spirits could also reside here, and that could be the ancestral spirits of my house. Anybody who lived on this land indigenously before, they could be ancestral spirits of land for my property. So this is what I was referring to if, having your biological or those type of ancestors be something you do not want to work with because maybe you didn't agree with how they lived, you can work with the ancestral spirits of land as well. This concludes this lesson. In the following lessons, we'll look deeper into working with these individual groups. We'll talk about offerings and how to do them and different prayers that you can do. Um, like I said in the last lesson, my morning ritual is I get up, you know, I I have like well, I had a routine and then recently I reset everything and kind of changed my routine up, which I realized when I went back and watched the first two lessons and I realized I talked about it in the first lesson and then I finally got around to doing it in this lesson and I kind of scaled back on my altars and they're beautiful. It took me a minute to get used to it because I had, I'm like, oh, I need a lot of things, but I've pared them down a lot and they're just gorgeous and the energy has just been really great coming from them. But I'll start at one altar. I do my morning prayers. I light my candle, say hey to everybody, catch up on things. And then I go around to each altar and do the same in turn for each altar that I work with. I have some altars that I do daily, uh, some I just do weekly. They each have a certain day that they've called to be worked on with. But they have, I try to make offerings and touch base with everybody every morning in some way. And these are the resources. They were in Reiki 2 as well. You've got Sacred Ceremony, how to create ceremonies for healing, transitions, and celebrations. The Way of the Mystic Wizard, honoring your ancestors, which if you're going to do ancestral veneration, I would grab that one first. That's the best one to start with. And then I've got the Neolithic Shamanism, which is working with the spirits of land, place, which I have just started. So I'm only about partway through the beginning. So I'm going to touch on some of those things briefly. I'll probably do that part last. I'll start with honoring your ancestors because I've been doing that the longest. And then we'll do the deities and then the Neolithic one, the spirits of place. They're all great books. They all have so much information. Um, I'd love to do a class on each one, but I'm just going to pull bits and pieces out and do classes as I go. I hope you enjoyed this part of the course and look forward to the rest of them.